Have you noticed how one off-season move is receiving increasing praise as people around the NFL analyze it? Initially, it didn't generate the same national buzz as some of the blockbuster trades we've seen across the league. But now, executives, analysts, and even rival teams are starting to agree that the 49ers may have made one of the smartest deals of the entire offseason. And the most exciting part for fans? This move could be just the beginning of something much bigger for the San Francisco defense in 2026. Keep reading, because the details behind this story are attracting a lot of attention in the NFL. But first, click the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any updates. Let's go! What if one of the most important moves of the entire NFL offseason wasn't the headline-grabbing blockbuster that dominated national television, but a trade that quietly gave the San Francisco 49ers exactly what they were missing? As more executives around the league evaluate the biggest roster moves of the year, a growing consensus is emerging around a deal that could have massive consequences for the 2026 season. And the deeper you look into it, the easier it becomes to understand why so many people around the NFL are suddenly pointing toward Santa Clara. According to information discussed on the San Francisco 49ers report, NFL executives surveyed by ESPN identified the 49ers' acquisition of Osa Odighizuwa from the Dallas Cowboys as one of the best trades completed during an offseason packed with major moves across the league. That is significant because this was not an offseason lacking star power. Several high-profile players changed teams, yet executives still placed the Odighizuwa deal among the most impactful transactions completed anywhere in the NFL. When evaluating the landscape, the comparison becomes even more impressive. Around the league, teams made aggressive moves involving established stars and Pro Bowl talent. Yet, San Francisco's acquisition of Odighizuwa continues to stand out because of the combination of value, fit, durability, production, and contract structure. Those elements together have created the belief that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan may have found one of the biggest steals of the offseason. The reasoning behind that praise is straightforward. The defensive tackle market was considered thin, and San Francisco initially explored other options before ultimately pivoting toward Odighizuwa. The Cowboys had previously tagged him before signing him to a long-term contract, but circumstances changed following Dallas's roster decisions, creating an opportunity for the 49ers to strike. Executives reportedly viewed the acquisition cost as excellent value, especially considering the level of player San Francisco received in return. What makes this even more intriguing is that Odighizuwa is not being praised simply because of raw sack totals. His impact extends far beyond that statistic. Over the last several seasons, he has consistently ranked among the NFL's most disruptive interior defenders in categories that coaches and executives value heavily: pressures, quarterback hits, and overall pocket disruption. Those numbers tell the story of a player who affects games even when he is not officially credited with a sack. The production profile is difficult to ignore. During the previous 2 seasons, Odighizuwa generated elite pressure numbers from the interior defensive line position. His quarterback hit totals ranked among the best at his position, and his ability to consistently collapse the pocket created problems for opposing offenses on a weekly basis. While some fans naturally focus on sacks, the broader data paints the picture of a defender who repeatedly forces quarterbacks off their spot and disrupts offensive rhythm. For San Francisco, that matters immensely. The 49ers finished last season with only 20 sacks as a team, and the production coming from the defensive tackle room was especially limited. That weakness became impossible to ignore. The front office clearly recognized the issue and responded aggressively by adding a player whose strengths directly address one of the roster's most glaring deficiencies. What may excite 49ers fans even more is the fit within Robert Saleh's defensive structure, and alongside the talent already present on the roster. Odigizua enters an environment where he can benefit from strong complementary pieces around him. His combination of pass-rushing ability and run defense gives San Francisco a more complete interior presence, something the defense desperately needed entering the season. Another factor repeatedly highlighted is durability. In a league where availability can be just as valuable as talent, Odigizua has demonstrated remarkable consistency. Missing only one game across 5 seasons is the kind of reliability every contender wants in a foundational defensive player. That durability, combined with a contract carrying an average annual value of roughly $20 million, has executives viewing the deal as financially favorable as well. Inside the organization, the early signs appear equally encouraging. Leadership qualities have already been noticed, and there has been discussion about how quickly he has integrated himself into the team's culture. That element cannot be overlooked when evaluating why so many people around the league believe this move could become one of the defining transactions of the offseason. The 49ers did not simply acquire production. They acquired a player viewed as a scheme fit, a culture fit, and a long-term contributor. And here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. Some of the statistical comparisons being discussed place Odigizua surprisingly close to other highly regarded defensive tackles around the league. When evaluating pressure generation, quarterback hits, and disruptive plays behind the line of scrimmage, the gap is often much smaller than many fans might expect. That is fueling the argument that San Francisco may have secured elite-level impact without paying elite-level acquisition costs. As training camp approaches, one question is starting to gain momentum among people who follow the team closely. Could Osa Odigizua be on the verge of producing the best season of his NFL career in a 49ers uniform? The answer to that question could have enormous implications for San Francisco's championship aspirations, and there is another major storyline emerging involving Maxx Crosby that could make this defensive front even more intriguing. But before we get to that, I want to know what you think. Was trading for Osa Odigizua the best move the 49ers made this offseason, and how many sacks do you think he will record in 2026? Leave your opinion in the comments. But while the excitement surrounding Osa Odigizua continues to grow, there is another storyline developing behind the scenes that could completely change the conversation about the future of the 49ers defense. And if what is being reported is accurate, San Francisco may not be finished exploring major additions to a unit that already looks significantly stronger than it did a year ago. One name continues to surface whenever discussions turn toward potential blockbuster moves: Maxx Crosby. According to the information discussed in the report, San Francisco's interest in Crosby is not something new. In fact, the belief is that the organization has admired him for years. Multiple reports and league sources mentioned in the discussion suggest that the 49ers have consistently viewed Crosby as a player who perfectly embodies the type of mentality they value. A relentless competitor. A player who plays every snap with maximum effort. Someone who fits the culture and identity that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have tried to build throughout their tenure. What's fascinating is that the rumors have not disappeared despite previous speculation. Instead, they seem to be gaining momentum. Sports Illustrated Raiders insider Hondo Carpenter was cited as saying that the 49ers' interest in Crosby is nuclear hot. That's an attention-grabbing description, and it reinforces the idea that San Francisco has not completely moved on from the possibility of pursuing one of the NFL's premier edge defenders. The timing, however, is what makes this story especially interesting. Rather than focusing solely on a move before the season begins, there has been discussion that a potential trade could make more sense closer to the NFL trade deadline. The logic is straightforward. If the 49ers establish themselves as legitimate contenders, and believe they are one elite pass rusher away from maximizing their championship chances. Adding Crosby could become a move that pushes them over the top. On the other side of the equation, if the Raiders find themselves falling out of contention, the possibility of revisiting trade conversations could become more realistic. The report emphasized that Las Vegas has already demonstrated a willingness to explore Crosby-related trade scenarios in the past, which is why speculation continues to linger around the league. There is another element that adds intrigue. According to the discussion, San Francisco may not rank at the very top of Crosby's preferred destinations if a trade were to occur. The reasoning presented centers around his previous years in the Bay Area with the Raiders organization. The suggestion is that, having already lived in Northern California, other destinations could potentially be more appealing from a personal standpoint. However, that does not mean he would reject the 49ers. In fact, one positive factor reportedly mentioned is the proximity to Las Vegas, where Crosby has established strong roots. Regardless of where those preferences ultimately stand, the football fit is undeniable. Imagine an opposing offensive coordinator trying to prepare for a defensive front featuring Nick Bosa on one side and Max Crosby on the other. That possibility alone explains why so many fans continue talking about it. The numbers highlight just how devastating that combination could be. Over the last several seasons, both players have established themselves among the league's most productive pass rushers. Bosa has continued generating pressure at an elite rate, while Crosby has built a reputation as one of football's most complete defensive ends, thanks to his combination of pass rushing ability, run defense, durability, and relentless motor. What stands out in the comparison discussed in the report is how closely their production aligns despite differences in games played. Crosby's tackle-for-loss numbers were particularly impressive, showcasing his ability to impact both phases of defense. He is not simply a player who hunts sacks, he consistently disrupts rushing attacks as well, something the 49ers prioritized after defensive struggles last season. And that brings us back to the bigger picture. Look at the pattern of moves San Francisco has made. The organization has not behaved like a franchise entering a rebuilding phase. Quite the opposite. Every major decision highlighted throughout the report points toward a team determined to compete immediately. The acquisition of Odighizuwa strengthened the interior defensive line. Additional roster investments have been aimed at improving the team right now, rather than years down the road. The message is clear. This front office believes the championship window remains open. That reality makes the Crosby speculation impossible to completely dismiss. When a team possesses significant financial flexibility, championship expectations, and a demonstrated willingness to pursue star players, blockbuster possibilities naturally remain on the table. The 49ers have a history of acquiring proven veterans when they believe a move can elevate their Super Bowl chances. That history is one reason these rumors continue attracting attention. Of course, none of this guarantees that a trade will happen. There are countless variables between now and the trade deadline. Team performance, injuries, playoff positioning, contract considerations, and organizational priorities will all influence any future decision. But what cannot be ignored is that the connection between San Francisco and Crosby refuses to disappear. Every time new information emerges, the conversation reignites. And every time fans imagine what a defensive line featuring Bosa, Crosby, and Odighizuwa could look like, the excitement only grows. For now, the confirmed reality is already encouraging for the faithful. The 49ers added a defensive tackle, whom league executives consider one of the best acquisitions of the offseason. They addressed a major weakness. They improved both their pass rush and run defense. And they did so without sacrificing the financial flexibility that could allow additional moves down the road. That is why this offseason may ultimately be remembered as a turning point, not because of one transaction alone, but because of a series of aggressive decisions designed to maximize the current championship window. If Odigizua performs at the level many executives expect, and if San Francisco continues exploring opportunities to strengthen the roster even further, this defense could look dramatically different by the time the playoffs arrive. The biggest question now is whether the 49ers are finished making moves, or whether an even larger surprise is still waiting later in the season. What do you think, faithful? Was Osa Odigizua the steal of the entire NFL offseason? And if the opportunity presented itself at the trade deadline, would you trade for Max Crosby to pair him with Nick Bosa? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest 49ers news and rumors.